Everyone. So this is Vision IAS magazine of August 2022 and I will be explaining all the contents of this magazine in a detailed way. About table of contents, it consists of polity and governance, international relations, economy section, security, environment, social issues, science and technology, culture, ethics, and schemes which are currently in the news. So let's get started with the polity and governance section. Panchayat's extension to the Scheduled Areas Act 1996. It is also called PESA Act 1996. So firstly we need to understand how panchayats were established. So there are 22 parts in the constitution, as you know, and after 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, Part 9 has been inserted in Constitution to establish panchayats. So Part 9 of the Constitution deals with the panchayats. Why it is in news? So recently Chhattisgarh has notified the rules for the PESA Act 1996 on the occasion of World Tribal Day. By this, Chhattisgarh became the 7th state in the country to frame rules for this particular act. About PESA Act 1996. So this act was enacted in 1996 for tribal empowerment. It was basically created to preserve tribal population from exploitation with the help of the Gram Sabha in villages. It is enacted for tribal empowerment and to bring them into the mainstream. So nodal ministry which is responsible for the implementation of this particular act is Ministry of Panchayati Raj. It is called constitution within the constitution. And why it is called? Because there is already provisions of part 9 in the constitution and it is considered as an extension to that part 9. After PESA Act was enacted, Union government circulated model PESA rules. So far 7 states have notified these rules, including recently Chhattisgarh. What are the objectives of PESA Act? So it will ensure self-governance. It will ensure that it will recognize the right of tribal communities to govern themselves by their own system of self-government. It will help for the management of natural resources in the tribal areas by the Gram Sabha. It will recognize the right of tribal communities and it will protect tribal people from moneylenders, land alienation, and provides them ownership on minor forest produce, minor water bodies, and community assets. Here land alienation is a concept in which alienated land which is taken from tribals by government for any kind of private development in exchange for other land or loan. So it will recognize the right of these community and it will protect them from any sort of these issues. And what are the challenges that it faces in its implementation? So there is a lack of awareness. So local tribal communities are mostly not aware of this particular act, its provisions. They do not know their rights. So there is a very unawareness of this act. Then limited autonomy. Gram Sabhas are mostly influenced by non-tribal individuals. And Gram Sabha and Panchayat have not enough revenue. They are not granted enough powers for revenue generation. People's participation and transparency is very low in Gram Sabha. Then implementation. Implementation is that there's an example that despite 26% Adivasi population in Jharkhand, it has failed to formulate rules for the implementation of PESA Act. So basically problem is that even after 25 years of this particular act, it is still not implemented in 3 states, that is Madhya Pradesh, Odisha and Jharkhand, which are part of 5th schedule areas. So 26% population, which is a huge population of Adivasi population, Adivasi tribal group, but still Jharkhand has not formulated the rules. So this is an issue. Next is functionaries do not have or may not have proper understanding of tribal culture. Functionaries here are like government officials such as IAS officers. They do not have a proper understanding of the tribal culture, their tradition, how they live, how they behave, and this is also a problem which it faces as a challenge. Then there is a problem of adequate capacity and proper access to information. Information is not accessed by the Gram Sabha for their governance. Then there is a lack of clarity. The PESA Act states that Gram Sabhas be consulted before the acquisition is made. So here the consulted word, consultation, it is misinterpreted. It is misinterpreted as that their approval, Gram Sabha approval, it is not needed for land acquisition, which creates a huge problem for the implementation of this particular act. What is a way forward? So there must be awareness. Awareness will be created by in the meetings of Gram Sabha. There should be funding, independent accounts for each Gram Sabha. So if independent accounts for every Gram Sabha is created, then the funds from the state government will be directly transferred to each Gram Sabha, and there will be no mismatch in between or tussle between the individual Gram Sabhas. Women's participation is very low. Despite 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, 1/3 participation of women is not ensured. Then community ownership, it should be concept of community ownership of resources in PESA areas should be integrated into the provisions of the centrally sponsored schemes. It should involve Gram Sabha in planning and implementation. So Gram Sabha should work in the planning of the community resource based schemes because in tribal areas they consider forest and every area like a community. So it is Gram Sabha's duty to implement these schemes. Then uniformity of laws. So there is a need to amend the colonial laws such as Indian Forest Act, Land Acquisition Act, and other related acts because the provisions in these acts do not suit the current situation. It was of the time of colonial era. It was planned according to it. So certain provisions need to be amended. It should not be changed wholly, but it should be amended clause by clause so that the problems can be tackled in the current situation, and it should be easy to implement these laws. Coming to the next, it is sports governance. So firstly we need to understand what is sports governance. So sports governance is defined as the system in which sports organization, so sports organization like BCCI for cricket, Indian Olympic Association are governed. So why it is in news? Because after the dissolution of the Committee of Administrators by the Supreme Court, the Bureau of FIFA Council has lifted the suspension on AIFF. So firstly FIFA suspended AIFF due to because it considered that there was an influence from third parties in the AIFF organization, All India Football Federation. So COA is a committee of administrators which was appointed by Supreme Court to manage the affairs of this organization, but now it is dissolved. So it has lifted the suspension. So suspension is not now. So it will help India to hold FIFA Under 17 Women's World Cup 2022, which is on October 2022. And sports governance and administration in India, we have already understand what is sports governance. It has strategic objectives, it lays down rules, it lays down policies, it has a mission, it has some objectives, and it lays down a strategy for the sports which are being held in India. It has basically two wings. So first is government bodies and second is autonomous bodies recognized by Olympic Charter. So you can see in the figure there is Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, MYAS. It has a one part Sports Authority of India, which provides sports institutes and training centers. And there is autonomous body recognized by Olympic Charter, which is Indian Olympic Association, IOA. It consists of State Olympic Association and National Sports Federation, and it further consists of Sports Federation. So these are two bodies which are mainly responsible for sports governance in India. Next is what issues does a sports organization faces and what are its impact. So there are a lot of issues which it faces, such as administrative issues, financial issues, cooperation and coordination issues, transparency issues. So let's have a look at the administrative issues. So there is unclear roles and responsibilities. So many organizations at various levels, like sports are conducted at the national level, at the state level, at the district level. So there is a lack of coordination between district, state and national level. So it creates a sort of confusion. Duplication of services and gaps it creates in the sports ecosystem, which is the basic administrative issues. And next is stronghold of politicians. Stronghold of politicians, retired bureaucrats and businessmen over sports. So example is like a politician, Amit Shah's son Jay Shah is BCCI secretary. So you can see political influence is also over sports, and due to which nepotism is being encouraged. And irregular elections are common. Irregular elections, you can see that AIFF, All India Football Federation president, continued despite its completion of term, which was 12 years. Then next is lack of voice of a sports person in sports administration, because there is a strong hold of politicians, retired bureaucrats, businessmen over sports. So sports person do not have their voice. They do not have their take in their decisions regarding themselves. So there is a lack of voice. Then prevalence of unethical practices such as doping and unauthorized betting in sports. Unethical practices, doping is a issue. It is a use of illegal drugs before sports performance in order to perform much better. So this is also an issue which administration faces. The next is financial issues. There are limited funds because there are so many sports in the country, but most of the fund that is being spended in mostly on cricket. As you know, IPL, it is very high budget. Spending on the IPL is so much in comparison to other games. So it also creates a sense of inferiority among the other sports. So it is also great problems. Next is limited union government funding. Sports is a state subject. It is not a union government subject. It is not a central subject. So union government do not do the sole funding of this particular subject. So there is limitation in this. Then cooperation and coordination issues. Except some sports like cricket, hockey, badminton, kabaddi, India does not have clear and functional architecture of sporting federations and events. Some sports do not have federations. So for example, it is given that Delhi High Court appointed a COA for day-to-day affairs for table tennis, as there was no one to manage Table Tennis Federation of India. So there is a lack of federation who are responsible to hold this, to perform these types of sports, and there is no federation. This is the problem. Then there is a multiple actors. state governments, local district bodies, private businesses. So it makes ground level cooperation and coordination very difficult. Transparency issues, sports organization enjoys large discretionary powers, so there is a corruption. If they are given unlimited powers, they will do like any unlimited, they will use their unlimited power to any extent, so it will lead to corruption. The next is, what are the government initiatives that are being taken to address the issue in sports governance? So direct or indirect financial assistance to sports federations, example tax benefits. So government has exempted tax, or do not tax those individual institutions, companies who have encouraged sports spirit in the country. Next is sports facilities for hosting events to National Sports Federation. So government provides all the sports facilities in the country. There is a sports code too. It has a minimum standards. It is recognized by Delhi High Court as a binding administrative directions to be compiled by federations for recognition. Like federations have to follow the administrative directions which are given in the sports code to get recognition, otherwise they will not get recognized. Then private sector entry in sports. By the entry of private sector in the sports, money flow increases. Lot of money is spent, but there is a problem. Profit is also profit then leads as a sole motivation. For example, in IPL, the money is spent a lot, but some businessmen who spend only for the profit. So game spirit will be destroyed of the players. So what are the way forwards? Framing well-defined sports legislation, then professional sports governance and administration. So it should be checked that person who is appointed, who is selected, whether he is qualified for that particular job or not. Qualification must be checked. And then curb the abuse of power, develop educational resources on governance, game plan, strategy, and measures to ensure integrity. It should be encouraged. Then introduce and enforce accountability and transparency requirements, such as mandatory public disclosures for administrative decisions, regular issuing of statements, etc. So public disclosures should be there to showcase public the decisions of the authority which are being taken for the sports purpose by various platforms such as Press Information Bureau. So it will make aware of its citizens, sportsperson about that. So there should be a transparency and everything should be issued on a public notice. Then adopt bottom-up approach. Better governance and administration at district and state level will influence national sports bodies as well. So if there is a better performance at the district level, if there is a better performance at the state level, then there will be a better performance at the national level and it will reflect a better performance in the national level. Next topic is Personal Data Protection Bill. So why it is in news? Because central government withdraw the Personal Data Protection Bill that has been tabled in the Lok Sabha in 2019. What is the background of this particular bill? So in Puttaswamy versus Union of India case, SC has ordered that right to privacy is an intrinsic part of the right to life and personal freedom guaranteed by the Indian Constitution. Before that, right to privacy was not considered as a part of right to life and personal freedom. It was not considered a necessity, but after that, Supreme Court considered it as a necessary part. So Center in 2017 set up an expert committee so that it can formulate framework for data protection in the country to make a law about it. Then now government has stated that bill will be soon replaced by a comprehensive framework of global standards laws, including digital privacy laws for contemporary and future challenges. Why the need for withdrawal? The bill was felt. Radical overhaul suggested by JPC. So why did the bill got withdrawn? So JPC committee suggested a huge number of amendments, recommendations and corrections that it was so messed up to take forward that draft. It would consist of a lot of amendments. It consists of so many recommendations. So government decided to quickly take up a new bill to make a new law because it was very much messed up. Then high compliance cost. Some tech industries have raised issue that the infrastructure, what is being demanded in that particular bill, does not suit their view. They say that it will it will have a huge drain on their resources. It's very high cost, or they will not afford it for such an high class infrastructure which is being designed by the particular bill. Balancing data protection and privacy. So as per experts, many provisions of the bill such as data localization, hardware authenticity clauses and so on went beyond data protection and into the realm of privacy. So data localization is a process of storing data on any device that is within the country. So this problem, hardware authenticity clauses, hardware authenticity also consists of hardware authenticator, is a kind of device used to verify identity of an individual. So these two provisions of the bill went beyond data protection. It does not stick to the basic idea of data protection and it goes to the realm of privacy. Then concern raised by opposition. It was alleged that law gave sweeping power to the government to access personal data of individuals under opaque conditions, citing national security and other reasons. So opposition claimed that this particular law, which is being designed to protect the data of the individual in the country, but it is doing exactly opposite of it. It is not protecting the data of the individual. Instead, government gets more access of the personal data. So this is the opposition view. Next, not aligned with changing technology landscape. It has been also raised that the nowadays problem like AI, ransomware, cryptocurrency, it does not suit that temperament. It is a bit older. It does not contains provisions for the crypto. So it should be changed and it should be then modified and then legislated. Then there are concerns raised by civil liberties organizations like lacked accountability measures for data protection authorities. So accountability, it says that it lacked accountability. Way forward. What are the way forward? So it should take into consideration the criticism, like all the criticism of the opposition and the private sector, tech industries, all these should be taken into consideration, and then the new data protection legislation bill should be formed. Best provisions practices from global experience. So before forming the bill of our country, it should also look at other countries' bill because it is very good in terms such as GDPR of European Union, Singapore Personal Data Protection Bill. So it should take some clauses by these particular laws, acts. Greater stakeholder consultation. So there should be consultation with the private sector, tech industries, so that it can give good results, and all will be involved. So all viewpoints will be collected, and the drafting of the bill will be it will be in a wholesome way. It should seek expert inputs. So expertise input should be there, who are expert in data protection and crypto. It should also, they will give correct measures to protect the data. Next is level playing field to small Indian startups. Like it should not curb Indian startups to a halt, because Indian startups are doing very well at the global stage, and if data protection bill or the law which will be formed, it becomes a hurdle of them, then there will be a downfall in these startups, and it is not a good sign for our Indian economy. Coming to the next, it is social media censorship and regulation. So why it is news? Because there is a Twitter's global transparency report, and it says that there is a legal demand being made by India to remove content from Twitter between 2014 and 20. Top 4 countries to order removal of content to Twitter between 14-22. Japan is the highest in the list, then Turkey, then Russia, and after that India. So India is in the 4th spot, who has been demanding to Twitter to back out its content. And key highlights of this report is between 14 and 20, government ordered Google to take down numerous pieces of content. These contents were related to, it was creating a polarization and criticism of the government, defamation, adult content, impersonation, among others. So these kind of content government ordered to take down from services like search, YouTube, Gmail, Blogger. The need for social media regulation. India is a diverse country, and there is a lot of, it will hampered due to growing polarization on social media. Social media is considered as a major cause for polarization. There is a lot of conflict between communities such as Hindu, Muslim due to polarization. So diversity will be impacted as people will be polarized toward one community, and they will try to support only one community, and the minority will be excluded, they will be discriminated. So it is not a good sign for our society. Next, curtailing fake news. Fake news on social media is too much. It led to violence. Like in Jammu and Kashmir, fake news has been responsible for a lot of violence that has been widespread in that particular area. It needs to radicalization. It needs to fear mongering. Fear mongering is a process of manipulation that causes fear by using rumors. So people spread rumor, and then the locality in which people live, they are feared, and this type of manipulation. Next is minimizing case of cyber stalking. Cyber stalkers is that they depend on the anonymity offered by social media, which allows them to keep a track of their victims' activities without the fear of anybody detecting their identities. So in social media, many types of apps are there: Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. So there is a lack of protection because anonymous users are so much in the list. They use someone another face and use do not register themselves as their own identity, but register as their another identity, and they will then track victims' activities, and the fear that they will be detected, they will be tracked, they will be jailed, it do not have that fear. And when they get fear, they just delete the ID and they are not traced upon. That's why cyber stalking is prevalent. Then preserving democracy. Digital platforms has a huge role in destroying the democracy of the country. Democracy, for example, the debacle at the US Capitol in 2021. So US Capitol is an office building in Washington DC, US. After Donald Trump's defeat in election, a mob of his supporters attacked in the building. So it was basically a kind of attack which was responsible from the digital platforms. I mean, digital platforms was the sole responsible for this. Then evolution of regulation via Information Technology Act 2020. So this IT Act, which has been enacted on 2021. So this act is applied to whole of India. It is a unitary law. It does not have, like, each state do not have its own law. It is applied in every part of the country, and in fact it also applied to outside the Republic of India and to the person irrespective of its nationality, whether he is Indian or not. Then it gives legal validity to electronic contracts and recognition of electronic signatures. So it gives legal validity to electronic contracts. The electronic contracts are the agreements that are drafted completely online, and electronic signatures. Then 2008 Amendment Act created a controversy. It introduced a controversial section 66A into the act. According to this section, it gives the authorities to arrest anyone who is accused of posting content on social media that could be deemed offensive. But Supreme Court in 2015 struck down this IT, saying that it is unconstitutional because it has violated Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution. Our Article 19(1)(a) states that right to freedom of speech and expression, and Supreme Court has stated that this particular section has violated the right to freedom of speech and right to freedom of speech and expression of our citizens. Then Government of India in 2021 notified IT Act, IT Rules 2021. There is a proposed draft amendment to the IT Rules 2021, obligation of intermediaries. This particular rule requires the intermediary to publish rules and regulations, privacy policy, and user agreement for access or uses of its services. So intermediaries here are, for example, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and many other social media apps. So they must publish their rules and regulations, guidelines. Like when we install WhatsApp, they always showcase a picture that by agreeing your terms and conditions, I'll use WhatsApp. So they should publish rules and regulations. They should publish their own privacy policy and agreement for the uses and access of its services. They should specify restrictions on the type of content that users are allowed to create, upload, or share. They should give information to the government that which type of content can be created, uploaded, and shared, and also required intermediaries to inform users about these restrictions. Like if you upload this type of content and a particular type of content, then it will be removed and you will find all the type of rules and regulations regarding it. Users should be aware of this. Then expeditious removal of prohibited content. So like speedy removal of prohibited content. It acknowledges complaints, and within 24 hours, if a complaint is filed, it should admit it, recognize it within 24 hours, and the complaint should be solved within 15 days. Then appeal mechanism against decisions of grievance officer. Designate a grievance officer which will address the complaints regarding this IT rules violations. And if anyone complains against the decisions of the grievance officer, so a grievance appellate committee will be formed by the central government to hear these appeals. Next is implementation challenges in affecting censorship. So censorship has no objective boundaries. It depends on the individual, like to what extent it is censored, it should be censored. So it has no fixed objective. So it creates problem. Next is potential for misuse, overregulation, and abuse. It it will make a means to control the ideas and expression of citizens. Like censorship will provide the state by motivated by political gains. They will try to showcase only if consider if one political party is showing only his uh, praises, his achievements, then the person who is using social media will get polarized to one political party and always voted to one political party only. And it also shows a kind of always hate towards other political party. So there will be loss of democracy, which is very crucial for the country. Then ineffective in certain cases. Censored material has the tendency to find its way into security through underground channels, lead to the generation of widespread curiosity. So if a material is censored, it can be seen in other underground channels, and there is a kind of curiosity among people that what content has been censored, so they try to find that particular content. So this is also ineffective in some these types of cases. Then way forward, encouraging self regulation. So it can be set up both in house and or industry wide depending on the function that it is supposed to serve. So within an organization, regulation must be there. Within an industry, regulation must be there. Then codification of all media laws. Codification leads to the certainty of governing laws. The codification of laws, the codification makes the law very simple, very accessible, and understandable to everyone. So it will create a kind of certainty that the laws will be governed fully. Limiting the extent of censoring power of the state, regulatory body should be allowed to take the decisions independently, while the government can act as a facilitator by forwarding its suggestions, recommendations. Regulatory bodies are independent body and they should be allowed to take the decisions, and government should act only as an advisor, as a facilitator. It should only suggest and give recommendation. It should not be the sole responsible of all these. Adopting proactive or non-punitive steps to address hate speech. Public education is very important. If the people are educated, then they will be aware of all this. Like in India, most of the people use smartphones, but they actually do not know that what to install, how to, what kind of apps are not to be installed, and they do not know the privacy kind of things, and that's why their money and everything is destroyed and taken away. Privacy is destroyed. Encouraging diversity, there should be encouragement of the diversity of the India. Different culture traditions should be encouraged so that there should be no hate speech. Various platforms should be established in which everyone has a strong hold point. Promoting professional education in the media. Ethical standards that respect privacy, dignity, and freedom of speech and expression of citizens can be developed and inculcated in the course curriculums to train in various media to minimize external control. So ethical standards should be imparted in individual. It can be imparted only by course curriculum, by inculcating the subjects which are taught in various media students and other students too, so that our awareness is developed and dignity and freedom of speech and expression of the citizen can be developed.